It started with 3 missing women and a storm no one took seriously. It ended with a blackout, a killer in the snow, and 3 lives that almost ran out of air. This is what happened. 10 p.m. Detective Marcus Webb sat alone in the precinct, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like angry wasps. Outside, snow fell in thick sheets, blanketing Manhattan in white silence. The heating system groaned and wheezed, fighting a losing battle against the cold seeping through the old windows. He stared at the photographs spread across his desk. 3 women, all brunettes, all in their 30s, all missing within the last 6 weeks. Sarah Kellerman disappeared November 2nd. Jennifer Ross, November 16th. Maria Santos, December 1st. 9 days ago, the phone on his desk rang, cutting through the quiet. Detective Webb here. The voice on the other end was tight with fear. Webb, it's Paul Santos, Maria's husband. I got something in the mail today. You need to see this. Webb grabbed his coat. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The drive through the storm was brutal. The streets were nearly empty, just a few taxis crawling through the snow like yellow beetles. Webb's unmarked sedan fishtailed twice on the way to the Santos apartment in the Lower East Side. Paul Santos answered the door with hollow eyes. He hadn't slept in days, that much was obvious. He led Webb inside without a word and handed him a plain envelope. No, return address. Postmarked yesterday. Inside was a single photograph. Maria Santos, alive, sitting in what looked like a basement. Concrete walls. A single bulb overhead. Her eyes were wide with terror. But she was breathing. She was alive. Webb turned the photo over. 3 words written in block letters. See, midnight, Pier 17, alone, 11 p.m. Webb drove back to the precinct through worsening conditions. The snow was coming down so hard now he could barely see 20 feet ahead. The radio crackled with reports. All units advised, storm conditions critical. Multiple vehicle accidents reported. Emergency services overwhelmed. Back at his desk, Webb studied the photograph under his lamp. He grabbed his magnifying glass, searching for details. The concrete walls were old, water-stained. There was something in the corner of the frame, a marking, faint but visible. He leaned closer. It looked like part of a number painted on the wall. A 7, maybe, or a 1. His partner, Detective Linda Chen, trudged in from the cold, shaking snow from her coat. Jesus, it's a nightmare out there. Half the city shut down. What are you still doing here? Webb showed her the photograph. Chen's expression hardened. When did this come? Tonight. He wants me at Pier 17 at midnight. Alone. That's a trap, Marcus. You know it's a trap. You know it's a trap. Webb nodded slowly. I know. But she's alive, Linda. After 9 days, Maria Santos is still alive. That means the other 2 might be too. Chen pulled up a chair. Talk to me. What's the connection? 3 women, different neighborhoods, different jobs. What's the link? Webb had been asking himself the same question for weeks. Sarah Kellerman was a nurse at Mount Sinai. Jennifer Ross worked at a law firm in Midtown. Maria Santos was a school teacher in the Bronx. They didn't know each other. No shared friends, no common places they frequented. But there was something. Webb could feel it like an itch he couldn't scratch. He pulled out his files, spreading them across the desk. Chen leaned over, scanning the reports. Wait, she said, pointing at Sarah Kellerman's file. She volunteered at St. Michael's Church on Thursdays. Webb grabbed Jennifer Ross's file, flipping through pages. His pulse quickened. Ross attended St. Michael's. Different service, but same church. And Maria Santos? Webb already had her file open. Sunday school teacher at St. Michael's. Chen met his eyes. That's it. That's the connection. Webb checked his watch. 11:23. He had 37 minutes before the meeting at Pier 17. I need to check something, he said, grabbing the phone. He dialed Father Thomas McKenna at St. Michael's. The old priest answered on the fourth ring, voice thick with sleep. Father, it's Detective Webb. I need to ask you about your church volunteers. Anyone new in the last few months? Maybe someone who showed unusual interest in the women who attended. There was a long pause. Well, there was one man started helping with building maintenance in September. Quiet fellow, kept to himself mostly. Ayake, but he was always very attentive when the ladies were around. Made some of them uncomfortable. What's his name? We knew him as David. David Pierce. But detective, he stopped coming around 3 weeks ago. Just disappeared. Midnight? The pier was a skeleton of wood and ice extending into the black water of the East River. The wind howled through the support beams, carrying snow in horizontal sheets. Webb stood at the entrance, his service weapon heavy under his coat. The place was deserted. Every shop shuttered. Every warehouse dark. Just Webb and the storm. He walked slowly down the pier, boots crunching on snow-covered planks. The water below was rough, waves slapping against the pilings with dull thuds. Halfway down, he stopped. A figure emerged from behind a shipping container. Medium height, dark coat, face obscured by a hood. Detective Webb, right on time. The voice was calm, almost friendly. Webb's hand moved closer to his weapon. Where are they? The figure laughed softly. Patience, detective. First, we need to talk. There's nothing to talk about. Tell me where they are. The figure took a step closer. But there is so much to discuss. Do you know what it's like, detective, to be invisible? To be the man who fixes things, who's always there but never seen. I watched them, week after week. They never saw me. Never really looked. Webb's mind raced. He needed to keep him talking. You're David Pierce. That's one name. I have others. Why them? What did they do to you? The figure's voice grew harder. They pitied me. Can you imagine? Their kind smiles, their charitable concern. They looked at me like I was broken, something to be fixed. So you took them. I saved them, detective. Saved them from their meaningless lives. Now, they see me. Really see me. Webb took a careful step forward. Heads over, David. Tell me where they are, and we can end this tonight. The figure reached into his coat. Webb's hand flew to his weapon, but stopped when he saw what the man pulled out. A flashlight. He clicked it on and pointed it at a warehouse behind him. Warehouse 7. The old Mercer building. They're in the basement. All 3. You have, maybe, 30 minutes of air left in that room before they suffocate. Webb's blood went cold. What? The figure backed away toward the edge of the pier. I sealed them in at 11:30. Air tight. You can try to save them, detective. Or you can try to catch me, but you can't do both. Choose. The figure turned and ran, disappearing into the maze of containers and warehouses. Webb ran the other way, toward Warehouse 7, radio in hand. All units, all units. I need emergency response at Pier 17, Warehouse 7. 3 victims trapped in basement, running out of air. I need fire and rescue now. The radio crackled back. Detective Webb, be advised, we have a citywide power outage. All units responding to emergencies across 5 boroughs. ETA to your location, unknown. Webb reached the warehouse. The main door was chained shut. He shot the lock off and shouldered through into darkness. His flashlight beam cut through dusty air, revealing a cavernous space filled with abandoned equipment. Basement. And he needed to find the basement. 1 a.m. Webb found the stairs after 5 frantic minutes of searching. They descended into pitch darkness, his flashlight the only illumination. At the bottom, a heavy metal door, sealed with a welded chain. He could hear it now, faint pounding from the other side. They were alive. Hold on. I'm here. Hold on. He ran back upstairs, searching for tools. His lungs burned, his heart hammered. In a corner office, he found a fire axe mounted on the wall. He grabbed it and ran back down. The first swing sent sparks flying. The second barely dented the chain. The third started to bite through. Webb swung again and again, muscles screaming, sweat pouring despite the cold. The chain finally gave way on the 17th swing. Webb wrenched the door open and stumbled inside. The beam of his flashlight found them. 3 women, bound but alive, pressed against the far wall. Their faces were pale, lips tinged blue, but they were breathing. The room reeked of fear and concrete dust. Webb pulled out his knife and cut them free one by one. Maria Santos was first. She collapsed into his arms, sobbing. It's okay. You're safe now. You're safe. Sarah Kellerman and Jennifer Ross clung to each other, too shocked to speak. Webb got them up the stairs and outside where the cold air hit them like a slap. But it was the most beautiful air they'd ever breathed. Fire trucks finally arrived at 1:47, followed by ambulances. The women were loaded onto stretchers, wrapped in thermal blankets. Paramedics checked Webb too, but he waved them off. Chen arrived with backup at 1:53. Marcus. Thank God. Are they okay? They're alive. All 3. But he got away. Chen put a hand on his shoulder. We'll find him. We have his name now. We have his face from church records. He can't hide forever. Webb stared out at the storm. The snow was still falling, burying everything in white. Somewhere out there, David Pierce was running. But New York was a big city, and winter was long. 2 a.m. Then the lights went out. Not just the street lights. The entire grid, from the financial district to Harlem, went dark in an instant. The ambulance's headlights and the fire truck's emergency lights were the only illumination for blocks. Webb's radio died mid-transmission. His flashlight flickered and went out. Around him, he heard confused shouts, the hiss of snow, and nothing else. A blackout? The Weather Service had warned about potential grid failures, but this was total. Chen's voice came from the darkness beside him. Marcus, this is bad. Without power, we can't process evidence. Can't access databases. Can't even charge our radios. Webb's mind was already working. Pierce knew. He knew the blackout was coming. That's why tonight. That's why 2 a.m. In the darkness, Webb heard something else. Laughter. Faint, but distinct. Coming from somewhere in the maze of warehouses behind them. He's still here. Marcus, don't. We can't see anything. We don't even know the layout. But Webb was already moving, using the ambient light from the emergency vehicles to navigate. Chen followed, cursing under her breath. They moved through the warehouse district, 2 cops in the dark hunting a ghost. 3 a.m. The snow had become a whiteout. Visibility was less than 10 feet. Webb and Chen moved slowly, carefully, weapons drawn. Every shadow could be Pierce. Every sound could be a trap. They found footprints leading away from Warehouse 7, already filling with fresh snow but still visible. Webb followed them, Chen covering their 6. The prints led to an old administrative building, door hanging open. They entered. Flashlights from the ambulances now too far away to help. Chen pulled out a lighter, the tiny flame casting dancing shadows. The footprints continued inside, tracked snow on dusty floors. They followed them up a staircase to the second floor. An office, files scattered everywhere, and in the center of the room, illuminated by moonlight through a broken window, a shrine. A shrine. Photographs, dozens of them. Sarah, Jennifer, and Maria, taken over months. At church, walking home. Through windows, Pierce had been watching them for a long time, but there were other photos too. More women. Webb's stomach dropped. How many others? Behind them, a floorboard creaked. Webb spun, weapon raised. Pierce stood in the doorway, a knife in his hand. "It's over, David. Put it down." Pierce smiled, his face half in shadow. "Is it? The power's out, Detective. No cameras, no records. In the morning, this all disappears under the snow." Like it never happened. Chen moved to flank him, but Pierce was faster. He lunged at Webb, blade flashing. Webb dodged left, his shot going wide in the confined space. The muzzle flash lit the room for an instant, freezing Pierce's face in a rictus of rage. Chen fired. The bullet caught Pierce in the shoulder, spinning him around. He stumbled backward toward the broken window, still holding the knife. Webb rushed forward, but not fast enough. Pierce's foot caught on a pile of files. He fell backward, through the window, into the storm. Webb reached the window and looked down. 2 stories. Pierce lay in the snow below, not moving. 4 a.m. They carried Pierce out on a stretcher, unconscious but alive. The shoulder wound wasn't fatal. He'd also broken his leg in the fall, but he'd survived to stand trial. The storm was finally beginning to ease. The snow fell lighter now, almost peaceful. The power was still out. But emergency generators had been brought in, lighting the scene in harsh white light. Webb sat in the back of an ambulance, a paramedic checking the cuts on his hands from breaking through the door. Chen brought him coffee from somewhere, hot and black. "You did good tonight, Marcus. You got lucky. If he'd sealed that room an hour earlier." But he didn't. "You saved them. All 3. Webb thought about the other photographs. How many more are there, Linda? How many others before we knew to look? Chen didn't have an answer. The ambulances pulled away, carrying the women to hospitals. Pierce went in a different one, handcuffed to the gurney, 2 officers riding along. Tomorrow they'd process the scene properly. Tomorrow they'd start tracking down the other women in those photographs, praying they'd just been surveillance, not victims. But tonight, 3 women were alive who shouldn't have been. Tonight, a killer was caught. In New York City, on the coldest December night in years. That had to be enough. 5 a.m. Webb drove Chen back to the precinct through streets still dark and buried in snow. The city was silent in a way he'd never heard before. No traffic lights. No streetlights. No hum of a million people living on top of each other. Just snow and silence. They sat at their desks, writing reports by candlelight like cops from 100 years ago. Webb's hand cramped from gripping the pen, but he kept writing. Every detail, every moment. When the power came back, when the sun rose, when the world returned to normal, this would all need to be documented. At 5:43, Chen finished her report and leaned back in her chair. "You ever wonder why we do this? Night after night, case after case? For everyone we save, there's 3 more we don't even know about yet." Webb looked up from his writing. "Because tonight, 3 women are going home to their families. Because Maria Santos gets to teach her students again. Because Sarah Kellerman gets to save lives at the hospital. Because Jennifer Ross gets another chance. That's why." "That's why." Chen smiled, tired but genuine. "You're a good cop, Marcus Webb. Don't ever forget that. 6 a.m. The power came back at 6:17, lights flickering on across the precinct. Computers hummed to life. The heating system kicked in with a grateful roar. Outside, the sky was beginning to lighten, though the sun wouldn't rise for another hour. Webb finished his report and filed it away. He'd be back in a few hours for questioning Pierce, for processing evidence, for beginning the long work of building a case. But for now, he walked to the window and looked out at the city. The snow had stopped. The streets were still buried, but already he could see movement. Early risers venturing out, snowplows beginning their work, the city waking up, shaking itself off, moving forward. Somewhere out there, Sarah Kellerman was in a hospital bed, holding her mother's hand. Jennifer Ross was giving her statement to another detective, voice shaky but strong. Maria Santos was being reunited with Paul, both of them crying, both of them whole. And in a holding cell downstairs, David Pierce was awake, realizing that his long night was over, but his reckoning was just beginning. Webb grabbed his coat. Time to go home, get a few hours of sleep, then come back and finish this properly. He took one last look at the photographs on his desk. 3 women, 3 lives saved. Sometimes, on the coldest nights when everything goes wrong, when the power fails and the city holds its breath, sometimes that's when the light shines brightest. Detective Marcus Webb turned off his desk lamp and walked out into the morning. The long night was over.